Most men think freedom is about time, money, or walking away from people who don't serve them. But here's the truth. You'll never be truly free until you understand what controls your mind from within. Because what keeps you stuck isn't always loud. It's not the pressure at work or the people who disappointed you. It's the mental noise, the emotional habits, the constant overthinking you've learned to normalize. In this video, we're going deep, beyond surface-level motivation. You'll discover why emotional freedom, mental clarity, and inner strength aren't just ideals, but disciplines. And you'll understand how Stoic philosophy offers a brutally honest, yet peaceful path forward. If you're tired of repeating toxic patterns, if you're done letting anger, fear, or self-doubt dictate your choices, then this message is for you. You'll learn how to master your reactions, reclaim your mind, and rebuild the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't beg for approval. We're not here to chase quick hacks. We're here to build a freedom that lasts, through reflection, discipline, and detachment from what no longer defines you. So if you're ready to break emotional chaos at the root and take back control from the inside out, you're in the right place. Hit like if you value self-mastery, and subscribe if you're serious about building strength where it matters most, in your mind. Let's begin. 1. Your greatest enemy isn't out there. It's within you. You think it's the world that keeps you trapped, the job that drains you, the people who misunderstand you, the system that doesn't care. You name everything outside as the reason you're not free, but what if the real prison has been built within your own mind? It's not always obvious, because the bars aren't made of steel. They're made of old emotional wounds, thoughts you've never questioned, and beliefs you've silently carried for decades. You wake up and feel the weight, but can't point to where it's coming from. You feel controlled, but nothing is visibly pulling the strings. That's because the greatest enemy of your freedom is silent. It speaks in the voice you call your own. It makes you think this is just who you are, but it's not. What governs most men isn't truth, but unexamined memory. Not strength, but unresolved emotion. Not reason, but a habit of reaction passed down and rehearsed so often it feels natural. You don't realize you're carrying years of fear disguised as responsibility, pride disguised as self-respect, shame disguised as discipline. And until you look within and separate what's truly yours from what was planted there, you will remain a servant to what you never chose. Imagine a man dragging a cart full of bricks through the desert. He keeps pushing, day after day. The load never seems to get lighter. He thinks the world is unfair, that life is just suffering. Until one day he stops. He looks behind him and sees half the bricks aren't even his. Some were given by his father's anger, some by society's expectations, some by his own refusal to let go of mistakes he already paid for. The moment he drops what was never his to carry, he walks freer, not because the world changed, but because he did. That's how it begins. Not with blaming the world, but by turning inward. Not with fighting others, but by asking, what am I still clinging to that's not mine? What beliefs still guide my decisions, even when they bring me pain? What emotional reflex keeps replaying every time someone disrespects me, doubts me, or walks away? When you stop pointing fingers outward and start observing the patterns within, something shifts. Your energy returns. Your focus sharpens. You start reclaiming space in your mind that was once ruled by fear, resentment, or false pride. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming conscious. And the Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus said, "It is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of death or pain." What matters is not the event, but the relationship you have with your thoughts about it. The world can insult you, but only you can decide if the insult becomes a wound. The world can reject you, but only you can let that rejection become identity. The real danger is never outside. It's how much of the outside you've allowed to live inside you, unchecked. So what do? You begin simply. You take 10 quiet minutes at the start or end of each day. You ask one question without rushing. What controlled me today without my permission? And you write it down. Not to shame yourself, not to analyze, just to become aware. Because the moment you can name what's happening inside, you're no longer ruled by it. You've stepped into clarity, into inner leadership. The truth is, no one can imprison you unless you hand them the keys. and no one can free you unless you're willing to look at the lock. You don't need louder motivation. You don't need more success. What you need is the courage to see, truly see, what's been hiding behind your reactions, your excuses, your mask. That's where real freedom begins. Not out there, but right here within. 2. What you don't rule with reason will rule you with emotion. A man can build a fortress on the outside and still collapse on the inside. He can command meetings, win arguments, manage people, but fail to manage his own mind. You see it in the way he raises his voice without knowing why, in how his mood shifts over a single word, in how quickly his peace is stolen by a driver, a glance, a delay. He thinks he's in control, until he isn't. Control is an illusion when reason is absent. When the mind isn't trained to pause, emotion takes over. Not with fury, but with habit. You follow the same internal script again and again, never realizing it was written without your permission. Emotion unchecked becomes your master. It doesn't shout, it whispers, nudges, and pushes. It convinces you this is just who you are. But it's not. It's just who you've allowed yourself to become without intervention. Imagine an untrained horse pulling a cart downhill. Without reins, without awareness, it gains speed until it crashes. No malice, no evil intent, just momentum. That's how unexamined emotion works. It doesn't need to be violent to be dangerous. It only needs to be unobserved. Anger doesn't ruin you all at once. It erodes your judgment, weakens your words, and poisons what you care about slowly. Fear doesn't destroy opportunities by force. It convinces you not to try. Pride doesn't scream. It silently stops you from asking for help when you need it most. Emotion, left unruled, becomes a quiet tyrant. The Stoics taught that no man is free if his mind is not his own, and the mind is only truly yours when it serves reason. Marcus Aurelius warned that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So what thoughts are coloring yours? When your decisions are born from reaction, not clarity, you are not choosing, you are being driven. The driver looks like you, sounds like you, but it is not the man who knows what matters. It is the boy who was never taught to sit with discomfort without letting it speak for him. The cost of not mastering emotion is not just inner chaos, it is lost presence. You're not truly here when emotion hijacks your attention. You replay old arguments while your child speaks. You spiral into self-doubt while opportunity knocks. You defend your ego while love asks for humility. Without emotional clarity, you are always somewhere else, haunted by past wounds or afraid of imagined futures. So what do? You bring the reins back to your hands. You begin with silence. When the heat rises, you breathe, not to calm down, but to interrupt the script. You train the mind like a disciplined soldier, not with violence, but with stillness. One breath, one pause, 1 second of awareness before the next word, the next step, the next choice. That second may not feel heroic, but it is. In that second, you decide if the next thing you say builds your peace or breaks it. You may think this kind of control is suppression. It isn't. Suppression hides. Mastery transforms. Suppression pretends emotion doesn't exist. Stoicism says, feel it, but do not obey it blindly. Let the wave pass through without letting it steer the ship. The mind is a powerful instrument, but left unchecked, it becomes noise. Left undisciplined, it becomes a battlefield. The man who does not rule his mind becomes a servant of his worst moments. But the man who returns again and again to reason, he becomes unshakable. Calm, not because life is easy, but because his response no longer depends on ease. Strong, not because he avoids storms, but because he refuses to drown in them. Every moment you choose reason over reaction, you reclaim territory within. You take back what emotion tried to govern. You build mental freedom, one pause at a time. Quietly, repeatedly, without applause. And that's the kind of power no one can take from you. 3. You are not your impulses. You are how you choose to respond. A sudden look, a harsh tone, a delay you didn't expect, and something rises inside. Heat in your chest, pressure in your jaw, the urge to react. Not later. Now. To say something, prove something, do something. It feels automatic, even necessary. But what if that isn't you? What if that impulse isn't a reflection of who you are, but who you haven't yet disciplined? We live in a world that confuses reaction with identity. You're angry, so you must be an angry man. You're afraid, so you must be weak. But emotions are weather. They pass. The storm isn't your fault. But whether you drown in it, that is your choice. and your response, not your instinct, is the mirror of your character. Imagine a door with no lock, swinging open to every gust of wind. That's a man who obeys every impulse. One word triggers him. One rejection derails him. One opinion makes him shrink. He thinks his strength lies in fighting back, in proving his worth, in not letting things slide. But real strength begins when the door stays closed, not to shut the world out, but to protect what matters inside. Every time you react without awareness, you hand over your peace. You surrender your clarity. You give the outside world a lever that moves you at will. And in that moment, you are no longer free. You are owned, not by others, but by your own conditioning. Stoicism doesn't ask you to erase emotion. It asks you to separate it from action. The Stoics knew that self-mastery is not coldness. It's clarity. It's the power to hold space between what you feel and what you do. That space is small, but sacred. In it lies your freedom. Epictetus once said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." The insult doesn't wound you, your judgment of what it means does. The delay doesn't enrage you, your belief that it's unacceptable does. The impulse isn't evil, but acting on it without pause is what chains you to regret. So what now? You train your mind like you train a muscle, not through theory, but through moments. Small, deliberate, inconvenient moments. You slow down when something speeds you up. You take a breath before you raise your voice. You bite your tongue, not to avoid truth, but to ensure it's delivered with strength, not spite. These aren't acts of weakness. They're acts of sovereignty. Real power isn't loud. It's not the shout that fills the room. It's the silence that holds its shape under pressure. And that silence grows each time you choose not to be a puppet of your emotions. Each time you sit with the urge to lash out and let it pass through. Not to deny it, but to examine it, and then to act, not react, from your higher ground. You won't get it right every time. No one does. But each time you pause, you strengthen the muscle of response, and over time, that muscle becomes reflex. Calm becomes your baseline. Clarity becomes your default. Freedom stops being an idea and starts becoming the way you move through the world. You are not your triggers, not your fear, not your pride. You are not your first thought. You are what comes after, when you reclaim the space to choose. And when that space is yours, so is your life. 4. Freedom doesn't come from avoiding pain, it comes from facing it head on. Pain doesn't knock, it enters without warning. Through loss, through silence, through the slow erosion of hope. Most men flinch when it arrives. They build distractions, drink comforts, chase noise, anything to avoid sitting in the room where pain waits. But the more you run from it, the more it follows. The more you numb it, the louder it returns. Because pain isn't the enemy. Your resistance to it is. A man can build his entire life around avoidance. He can work hard, stay busy, and play strong. But deep inside, there's a locked drawer. And inside it, a voice he refuses to hear. A regret he hasn't admitted, a wound he never gave words to. Over time, the drawer becomes heavier. Not because the pain grows, but because carrying the act of avoiding it does. Avoidance has a weight that multiplies. You've seen this before. A soldier who can't sleep. A father who never talks about his father. A man who avoids love because the last one hurt too deeply. The body shows what the mouth won't say. Tension in the shoulders, jaw clenched, breathe shallow, as if bracing for a storm that never ends. But storms aren't meant to be lived inside. They're meant to be walked through, eyes open, head high. The Stoics didn't see pain as punishment. They saw it as training. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Pain is not a barrier. It is the invitation to become more than you were. Not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by using it as fuel. As the friction builds, the inner muscle, as the moment where clarity is born. A man only learns who he is when he stops trying to outrun what shaped him, when he sits with the discomfort, when he stops blaming the world and starts asking better questions. Why did that failure still hold power over me? Why does silence make me restless? What am I still grieving that I never let myself name? These questions are not weaknesses, they are thresholds. And crossing them requires one thing: presence. You can't heal what you won't face. You can't release what you haven't acknowledged. And no amount of productivity, strength, or control will make that truth go away. Emotional strength isn't forged in ease. It's born when a man chooses to stay present in discomfort without trying to escape it. And slowly what once crushed him becomes part of him, integrated, not avoided, seen, not suppressed. His pain doesn't define him, but it deepens him. It no longer controls him because he no longer fears it. If your instinct is to turn away from pain, pause, breathe. Ask what exactly you're afraid will happen if you face it. Most of the time it's not death, it's memory. It's the story you built around what pain meant to you. That you were weak, that you were not enough, that you should have been more. But Stoicism cuts through those illusions. It tells you what happened is real, but what you do now, that's who you are. Start with one memory, one discomfort. Write it down, not to explain it, not to justify it, just to bring it to light. Then sit with it. No distractions, no need to solve. Let it exist, let it soften, and watch as something subtle shifts. What you feared was a wall was actually a door. What you ran from was a signal, not a sentence. A free man doesn't avoid pain. He knows it's part of the path. He doesn't collapse under it. He meets it, not because he enjoys suffering, but because he understands what lives on the other side. Calm, resilience, and the quiet strength of a man who didn't run. 5. Everything you endure is a chance to train your inner strength. No one escapes difficulty. Not the rich, not the wise, not even the strong. Life doesn't choose its battles for fairness, it chooses them for growth. And yet most people spend years resisting every challenge that shows up, as if pain were a sign of failure, as if the struggle meant you were off course. But what if it's the opposite? What if hardship doesn't block the path? What if it is the path? Strength isn't built in comfort. No man becomes disciplined when everything goes his way. Growth does not come from what's easy to digest. It comes from what tests your foundation, from what breaks your illusion, from what forces you to face what's been left untrained inside. Every setback, every delay, every disappointment, these aren't curses. They are invitations. Not to escape, but to fortify. Picture a blade. It's shaped not by silk, but by fire and friction. Without resistance, metal stays soft. So does character. You don't build resilience by avoiding the difficult. You build it by staying conscious through it. When you carry a heavy moment without collapsing, you sharpen the part of you that won't fold under pressure. You become a man who can be leaned on, not because he never bleeds, but because he keeps walking while he does. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus lived most of his life as a slave. He had nothing to his name but his mind, and yet that mind, under pressure, became steel. He taught not through theory, but through scars. Difficulties show what men are, he said. Pain doesn't invent weakness, it reveals it. And once revealed, it gives you a choice. Complain or construct, blame or build, shrink or strengthen. Emotional clarity works the same way. Most people see chaos and retreat. They label anxiety as something to fix, sadness as something to bury, and confusion as something to ignore. But those aren't failures. They're signals, clues that something deep inside is being asked to evolve. When you stop seeing discomfort as a mistake, you begin to work with it, not against it. You don't need a perfect mindset. You need presence. You need a willingness to show up when it's hard. When life pulls the rug, don't just reach for stability. Reach for awareness. Ask, what is this moment training in me? What would strength choose here? What would stillness say now? These questions don't erase the weight, but they give it meaning. And meaning turns weight into fuel. Not everything needs to be fixed. Some things need to be felt, then faced, then transformed. The man who understands this walks lighter. Not because he suffers less, but because he no longer fears suffering. He has tasted it, stared it down, and emerged with something rare. Inner strength that can't be bought, borrowed, or broken. Start today. Not with grand declarations, but with attention. When frustration hits, pause. When a door closes, breathe. When emotion rises, don't flee. Stay. Notice what it brings up. Then write one sentence, one truth you've been avoiding. Bring it out of the fog. When you do, you've already begun the work. That's where transformation lives. In the invisible choices you make when no one's watching. In the discipline of turning friction into focus. You weren't made to live untouched. You were made to endure, to rise, to sharpen. Everything you face, every loss, every betrayal, every quiet moment of doubt is not wasted. Not if you stay awake inside it. Because real strength isn't what you show, it's what you carry. And what you carry silently shapes the man you become. 6. Live by your nature, not by others' expectations. A man can live an entire life chasing applause and still die hollow. He can build the image, craft the persona, say the right words, and be everything the world wants except himself. And beneath the surface, he knows it. There's a quiet tension in the soul of every man who has abandoned his nature for the sake of fitting in. It's the tension of living outside yourself, of wearing a mask so long you forget the shape of your own face. Expectations come early, from family, from school, from society. Be strong, be polite, be successful, be agreeable. Bit by bit, you mold yourself into what earns approval. But in doing so, you slowly exile the man you were born to be. Not because he failed, but because he wasn't convenient. And you convince yourself this is growth, that adapting is maturity, but adaptation without truth is erosion. You may be accepted, but not by yourself. Living for others doesn't always feel like slavery. Sometimes it looks like success, a good job, a polished image, a life that looks impressive from the outside. But when night comes and the world goes silent, something inside you stirs. The questions you buried all day begin to whisper. Whose goals are these? Whose life am I living? What have I traded to stay liked, praised, or safe? Imagine a tree bending toward the sun. At first, it grows slightly off-center, then more. Over the years, the curve becomes permanent. The tree still stands, still grows, but never in the direction its roots intended. That's what happens when you build a life on external validation. You survive, you achieve, you perform, but you drift further from alignment. And eventually, you forget what it feels like to be grounded in your own truth. The Stoics warned of this danger. They taught that a man's nature is not what the world tells him to be. It's the part of him that aligns with reason, virtue, and internal clarity. Living according to nature doesn't mean giving in to impulse. It means rising above distraction. It means remembering that no applause can replace self-respect, that no recognition can substitute for integrity, that true peace comes not from being seen, but from being whole. Living by your nature begins with silence, not the silence of avoidance, but the kind that reveals, the kind that helps you hear the voice under all the noise. You don't need to retreat to the mountains. You need 5 minutes where no one else's opinion matters, where you ask, without filter, what do I truly value? What am I still doing just to keep people pleased? What part of myself have I abandoned to be accepted? And then, gently, you return. You start saying no to what drains you. You stop explaining choices that are yours to make. You no longer perform strength, you build it. You no longer chase worth, you reclaim it. The shift is quiet, but unmistakable. You stop asking if you're enough. You start living like you already are. This isn't rebellion. It's realignment. It's not selfishness. It's sanity. You weren't born to be everything for everyone. You were born to embody your nature with discipline and calm. And in doing so, you offer the world something far more powerful than likability: truth. Begin small. Name one thing you're doing right now that betrays your deeper self. Not to shame it, but to stop normalizing it. Then choose one step that brings you closer to who you were before the masks. The world may not clap, but your soul will finally exhale. And that is freedom the world can't give and can never take. 7. Only by mastering your mind can you be truly free. A man can cross borders, earn fortunes, break records, and still be a prisoner, not to the world, but to himself. Freedom isn't found in what surrounds you, it's found in what governs you. And when your thoughts run without discipline, when your emotions rise without command, when your mind speaks louder than your will, you don't own your life. It owns you. The modern world confuses noise with movement. But busyness isn't purpose. Accumulation isn't clarity. You may look powerful on the outside, yet be hostage to every mood, every insult, every craving, every voice that isn't your own. That isn't a strength. That's slavery in disguise. And the chains don't rattle. They whisper. They say, respond now. Prove yourself. Don't look weak. But the mind that obeys every impulse will never know stillness. And without stillness, freedom dissolves. Picture a man holding the reins of a wild horse. Each time he tightens the grip, the horse pulls harder. Soon, the reins are moving him. His hands may still hold the leather, but the control is gone. That's what it feels like to be reactive. You think you're deciding, but reaction isn't decision, it's default. Mastery begins the moment you stop moving out of habit and start choosing with clarity. That moment may be small, It may be silent, but in it, the foundation of a different life begins. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Not his job, not his surroundings, not even his success. Himself. The thoughts that loop, the stories that run, the judgments that cloud. The only true enemy is the part of you you've never challenged. And the only true freedom is found in turning inward, not to indulge, but to govern. This doesn't mean perfection. It means presence. It means seeing the thought and not becoming it. Feeling the fear and not obeying it. Holding the anger and not letting it shape your next sentence. Emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. The ability to stand in the storm of your own mind and not be swept away. To see chaos and remain anchored. To feel the pull and still choose the path. That path is trained. It doesn't happen by accident. You build it in repetition, in ritual, in the smallest spaces of your day. When you wake up and choose quiet before you check your phone. When you breathe instead of reacting. When you write instead of ruminate. These acts aren't grand, but they are sacred. Because each one rewires the reflex. Each one teaches your nervous system that it doesn't have to live on edge. Each one reminds your mind that it's no longer the master. You are. Start small. One thought, one emotion, one reaction. Pause. Look at it, not to judge it, just to see it. That single second between impulse and action is your battlefield. And when you win it, even once, you break the cycle. You interrupt the pattern that has run you for years. You stop living on repeat. You step off the treadmill of reaction, and you begin to walk calmly, deliberately towards something real. That is what mastery looks like. Not ego, not dominance, but calm in the face of your own chaos. A man who knows he can respond without rage, who can retreat without shame, who can lead without shouting. He doesn't perform control, he embodies it. And when you reach that place, not all at once, but breath by breath, you won't need to chase peace. You'll carry it quietly, firmly, without apology, because the mind you've mastered no longer rules you, it serves you. And that, finally, is freedom. Freedom isn't given, it's earned. Not through status, wealth, or applause, but through stillness, discipline, and deep inner work. What we explored today wasn't philosophy for the bookshelf. It was a path toward clarity, emotional strength, and self-mastery. You now know the truth. Your greatest enemy is not the world, it's the untrained mind. What you don't rule with reason will rule you with reaction. And every impulse you follow without question keeps you bound. But the moment you pause, observe, and respond with intention, you begin to reclaim your life. To become free, you must face what hurts, not hide from it. You must stop living for others' approval and return to your own nature. And above all, you must master your mind, not just to silence it, but to guide it. This is the Stoic way: quiet, unshakable, liberating. So let this not be just a video you watched. Let it be the moment you decided to train your mind daily, to stop feeding emotional chaos, to choose clarity over noise, integrity over impulse, peace over validation. Take 5 minutes each morning. Sit in silence, reflect. Ask yourself, what owns me today, and how do I take it back? Small steps, repeated. That's how true transformation begins. Now I'd like to hear from you. Which part of this message resonated most deeply? What truth are you ready to face? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another man needs to hear today. Keep showing up for your mind. It's the most sacred ground you'll ever learn to master. And in mastering it, you'll find the kind of freedom no one can give and no one can take.